Hey, good Saturday afternoon to you, and welcome to Coping with COVID, updates on the pandemic and information to help you thrive and survive COVID-19. I'm Trey Taylor, and before we get to our interview today, I want to update you on some COVID-related information. Mail-in ballots are being offered for all citizens right now. As a matter of fact, Wednesday, we're going to talk with the folks with Richland County Democratic Party to tell you more about that. Also, most high school football coaches in the state of South Carolina say that sports will continue this year, although it will not be in August. Of course, we'll update you on that and more. Also going on, evictions. As of yesterday, the 2-month moratorium or pause on all landlords filing evictions has been lifted. But if you are still experiencing some financial difficulties because of loss of a job due to COVID, call South Carolina Legal Services. You can get free legal services. You do have some rights, so don't worry. Call SC Legal Services. Last but certainly not least, in Columbia, South Carolina, for the next 3 weeks on Thursday and Friday, there is free coronavirus testing. You do need to have an appointment, so go to Kroger, Kroger health.com/COVID testing. Kroger health.com/COVID testing. And you can make an appointment to get tested for free the next 3 Thursday and Fridays in Columbia at the South Carolina State Fairgrounds. Right now, we're going to go to the PD, Florence, South Carolina, and talk again with State Representative Terry Alexander. Terry, thank you so much for joining us again for Coping with COVID.
Thank you, Trey, and I appreciate you doing what you do to spread the word and to keep the people informed in terms of the process, and the good, the bad, and the ugly about this virus that is mainly and primarily in a large degree affecting our communities.
Absolutely. And that's the point of coping with COVID, Terry. You know, I want all people to get the information, but particularly in the minority communities where, one, we may not necessarily get information from traditional sources like radio or television, but two, because there's so much misinformation in our community that has become detrimental to our health. So thank you for thanking me, but it's my pleasure to do it. Now, I know that the last couple of days that you were in Columbia because there was a continuation of the legislative session that had to shut down early because of the coronavirus.
Yes, we were. We went back into session on this past Tuesday to deal with a couple of items that really to allow the government to continue to run as it did this past, as it is in this present year. We are supposed to pass a budget before we leave the General Assembly. And because of this virus, we were not able to do so. So one of our main things was to do is to go back and vote on what we call a continuing resolution that will allow the government to continue to work and operate on 1920s. And so that's one of the things that we did on this past Tuesday.
Were there any, because as soon as you guys left, it was like the beginning of the coronavirus. We were just starting to, have some issues. Was there anything that you guys talked about that was COVID related, Terry?
Well, several things. One of them is that we, in that continuing resolution, we passed a component that had $15 million in it to make sure that the voters, the folks who are working at the polls, are safe when it comes to this upcoming election. And I'm not sure. I know it's for the June. We're going to talk about that even more. But I'm sure for the June primary to make sure that not only the workers are safe when they vote, but also that those who are coming to vote are safe. But this past week, as we were there, we also passed a resolution slash a bill that suggested that allow everybody and anybody to vote absentee because of safety. And the deal is that, and we argued that to some degree because that bill only deals with the primary in June. We are looking at November, but right now, anybody and everybody can request an absentee ballot, and not necessarily have to deal with the crowd and the safety issue at our various polls, because we have not figured that out yet. We have not figured how that's going to look on June the 9th.
Yeah, and that's so important, Terry, because you're right. Not only do you want people to be safe, you want people that safe that are working there. You want people to feel like they're safe to even come vote. I mean, we already have issues with people coming to vote. Now we're in the midst of a pandemic, so that's why I'm so glad that now anyone, without an excuse, can take advantage of absentee voting.
Absolutely, and I would strongly urge all of your viewers to take advantage of that, and to also to tell any and everybody to take advantage of that, and that is to call your local office and ask them, or write an email, whatever, however it means you need to do it, and request an absentee ballot. Send it to you, you fill it out, do whatever necessary you have to do, and then send it back in. And therefore, you don't have to deal with those crowds. But what we were trying to do, particularly the Democrats, what we were trying to do is extend that process, not to just June the 9th, but also in November, that any and everybody can vote absentee ballot. Right now, I think there's about 15 issues that would allow you to vote absentee ballot. And we are saying if we can do this in June, why can't we do it in November? I don't know what the situation circumstances is going to be like, but we need to extend that or expand that, if you will. But what is happening is that we are finding out that the Republicans are having opposition, and they know that they want as many as their friends and families and whatever to get out and vote. So they're doing that, not necessarily to help us or the Democrats, but to help themselves. So it was in a catch-22. So they had to go and vote on that particular issue. And we're glad about it. And hopefully, when we go back, and we may have to go back. No, we're going to have to go back later on this summer, early fall, to deal with the budget. And we're going to push that they extend this resolution to November as well.
Well, listen, it's really a nonpartisan issue because people are people. And no matter if you're Democrat, Republican, if you're independent, if you're green, red, purple, orange, everybody's being affected by the coronavirus. And it makes sense not to wait until the fall. We already know, epidemiologists, doctors who have more knowledge than us have already said we're going to get another wave in the fall. So why wait? And then have to go through all of the red tape to, make sure, there's absentee voting in the fall when we just be prepared.
Well, even though we don't want to say it's political, but it is. And, because
that's unfortunate.
Representative Brawley from Richland County presented a bill suggesting the same thing, but extending it. That bill was killed, and then a Republican colleague of mine got up and presented almost the same bill, because they wanted to make sure, and they wanted to make sure that the people see their particular constituents, see that they're working for them. But Representative Brawley has basically did the same thing that our colleague from the Rock Hill area presented to the General Assembly. And it is politics. And if you look at this whole process, what we're doing and what we're dealing with, as much as we don't like it, it is becoming political. As much as we don't like it, we're talking about human beings, human souls. We're talking about the lives of our mothers and our fathers.
Right.
But I guess it hasn't hit them enough. You know what I mean? Close enough. So we are hoping that we will remove the politics and look at the lives of individuals here in the state and across this nation.
Yeah. So is it a done deal, or what else has to happen to make sure? So it's done for June, but now it's got to be passed for November. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's done for June. Any and everybody can call and request an absentee ballot. Any and everybody. And it's interesting because we try to promote that. We try to push that the last couple of years, but our Republican colleagues saw that they're saying that it is to the Democrats' advantage, if we have early voting or absentee voting. But now when it's affecting them, they see that it's something that we need to do for all of the people. But it's something that we've been pushing all along. We've been suggesting for years that we need to open up the voting process and not limit the opportunities for people to vote. One of the few countries in the world that do everything, that their government do everything that they can to minimize people's ability to vote. And so we are hoping. We are hoping that our colleagues will see the benefit of this, not just from a political perspective, but just from a human issue perspective.
Absolutely. We're talking to State Representative Terry Alexander. He represents the PD area, Florence, Darlington area. Starlee Alexander, yes, that is a relationship. Florence, she says she's in the house. Lady Star, thank you, Star, for watching Coping with COVID. Terry, we are actually up against, the national HBCU graduation is today. It started at 2:00 with President Obama and a star-studded audience. So we want to say hi to those of you who are not watching that and are watching this. And of course, those of you who check us out in the replay. So Terry, anything else COVID related?
So you put me up against HBCU graduates. Trey?
Well, you know what? Listen, I started to move it. Absolutely. I started to move it. Then I said, well, we had already promoted. It was going to be at 2:00. It's at 2:00 every day, and people can. I went back and forth. I was almost going to call you and say, hey, do you want to push it back? But listen, we're here now. This is important too, and people can watch it in the replay.
It's good.
Everybody's not watching it. We're not watching it. Me, you, and Star, at least 3 of us.
3 people are not watching it.
I'm gonna watch it. So Terry, anything else that is COVID related that you guys talked about? I know that you had a really good sit down with the governor, you and some African American preachers from South Carolina.
Yeah, what we wanted to do, also in that continuing resolution, we included $25 million that's going to MUSC to come up with plans, ideas, and our suggestions to help combat COVID-19 in South Carolina. And what we wanted to do is tell the governor, and we also talked with Senator Tim Scott, to tell them, listen, we want to make sure that money is spent not only in the African American communities, not all of the money, but it's fair share, not only in the African American communities, but spent by African Americans. It is important to us. We had a situation here in Florence where we were doing some testing, Trey, and there were individuals who were afraid to go get tested because they were afraid of
really
the government. Yeah, I mean, it was on the news saying that folks, and they were just afraid. And Black folks don't have the best history with our government. That we have some areas in our history that shows that the government doesn't have our interest, our best interest at hand. So some of them are afraid, and we told the governor, if you want to expand testing, and we're doing that. The E&M Baptist Convention, I think, I have about 81 churches waiting now to do testing in South Carolina. The AMEs are doing likewise. Non-denominational are doing likewise. So we want to make available testings in our communities. Also, we want to make available those individuals who have some concerns to see people who they know. And we're talking to DHEC and the government in terms of how are we going to make that happen. People normally go with folk whom they know. And I know that the federal government have all these national commercials going on running in our communities, but folks still want to see Trey or Terry or somebody they're familiar with to say,
Oh, Terry, yeah.
Okay, girls and guys, this thing is real, and we need to figure out how to manage it. So that was our conversation with the governor.
Yeah.
And he was pretty receptive to it because I think right now, South Carolina, I read that South Carolina is one of the poorest testing states in the country. South Carolina. Mm-hmm. And so we want to expand that. And we must remember, though, as we expand testing, we also expand the possibilities of more individuals being diagnosed with COVID-19. You know, so we can look for the numbers to increase as we do more testing.
More testing. Yeah. And but I'm so glad that the governor was open to not only, first of all, to have the conversation with you and the Black ministers, because from the beginning of time, the Black church has been the stalwart, the foundation, of African Americans. Whether you go to church or not, the Black church was where the gathering place is, where people would get their information. So to meet with the Black preachers means so much.
Yeah, and we mentioned it to him. You know, the African American church is the apex of our communities. Before we were Black elected officials, they were the Black churches. And even now, when elected officials, whether he or she be Black or white, one of their first stops are going to be at the Black church. So the Black church is the apex in our communities. So if that's the case, then why not use them to make sure that their services that's available to them? And that's one of the things that we kind of pushed towards the governor. And he was amenable, and he said, whatever we need, he said, Terry, whatever y'all need, just let me know. And he kind of mentioned it. We got him on tape saying,
that's good.
Money is not a problem. we gave MUSC $25 million. $25 million to manage and to service this whole COVID thing throughout our state. And we want to make sure, a large portion of those dollars are used in the African American community.
Yeah, it's important. Yeah, it's important. And like you said, we need to see people that look like us, that we know and trust, say to us, okay, like you said, we need to go on down here and do this, So it really needs to be a grassroots effort, because again, it's affecting us by leaps and bounds, already. And we talked about this the last time we talked. We're already a vulnerable community because we're the folks that don't have the health care. We've got the high blood pressure. We've got the diabetes. We've got the heart attack. We got the stroke. You name it, we got it. So we're already vulnerable in the first place. And now, like you said, we're afraid, we're skeptical. We're out here not wearing masks. You said that, we were one of the lowest testing states. I read that we were one of the states that has the lowest number of mask wearers. I see it. Black and white.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we mentioned to the governor. Not only we want testing, but we want supplies in our communities, supplies in our church. As we begin to open up and move forward, or whatever he might want to call it, accelerate South Carolina, we want to make sure that the people in our communities, the most vulnerable people in our community, that's both Hispanic and African Americans,
that
they have the safety that they need. Just don't put us out there and say, okay, you're on your own, do whatever you need to do, be safe. And, whatever that means, being safe, is defined differently by whom you're talking to.
Exactly.
We know for us that it affects us more, and we need to figure out how to manage it better. And no better way in my mind's eye, and in the eyes of clergy members from across the state, is to allow the Black church to help manage that.
Absolutely. Terry Alexander has joined us, the state representative from the PD, Florence Darlington area. And we were just talking about the fact that he and the governor met with some African American preachers around the state to ramp up the testing, the supplies for the minority community. So now that you've had the meeting, what is the next step to move this forward, Terry?
Well, what we are going to do, we are going to meet with DHEC. We're going to meet with MUSC to have a conversation and a discussion with them. President Green of the Baptist E&M Convention mentioned to the governors that he has, I think, about 81 churches across this state that are ready, to do the testing. And he submitted that list to DHEC. So what we're going to do is follow up with DHEC, follow up with MUSC, and see how we can make this whole thing work. Again, the AMEs are doing their thing. The United Methodists are doing their things. The Apostolics are doing their things. The non-denominationals are doing those things. So we need to combine these resources in these areas so that we can make sure this happens. So we are planning now a conversation with DHEC, with the governor's office, and with MUSC to make sure that we have a plan that we know works for us. You know, lots of time folks come into our communities and tell us what's best for us.
Right.
And a lot of them have underlying motives. So we are hoping and praying that our churches will take the lead in this area so that we might not only provide them with the services, but provide them with the information necessary to keep our people safe.
Absolutely. That's good stuff. So Maxine said the graduation is on at 8 o'clock. The graduation is on at 8 o'clock, but the show starts at 2 o'clock. So, but thank you, Maxine, for the information.
Yeah, the real thing, I think President Obama is going to be speaking to them at 8 o'clock. That's going to be quite interesting and powerful and profound.
And Oprah's supposed to speak also. Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, so we are excited about that.
Yeah. If your regular graduation wasn't going to be all of that. So
no. You know, all is going to hear and talk to the world, if you will. You know. Yeah.
So anything else that happened during the legislative session, Terry, that we should know about, COVID related or not?
Well, let me say this. That I think.
Oh, did we lose Terry? Okay.
I think it's quite telling. Out of nowhere, we got $25 million for MUSC. Out of nowhere, we don't know where it came. It's out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere, it just dropped out the sky.
And it's quite telling about our.
That's a lot of $1 million. 25 million.
Yeah, about our government and their willingness to do what they are capable of doing. Whereas we have communities that still does not have clean water. We have communities that have poor schooling.
Yeah.
We have communities that do not have broadband, and those communities are in most cases and instances in our communities, if you will. So out of nowhere, this government finds all this money to do this. So that's quite telling. Not only from a statewide perspective, Trey, but from a national perspective. The people in Michigan still have water problems after about 5, 6, or 7 years. Couldn't find no money. The government wouldn't fund no money.
Right.
All of a sudden, we can spend out $2 or $3 trillion just like that. That's quite telling about our government. And I understand why so many people have some issues with trusting our government. And what that told me this past week when we came up with that $25 million, they can do whatever they want to do. It told me that if we can allow absentee voting for everybody on June the 19th, June the 9th, we can do it all the time. You see what I'm saying?
That's right.
We're talking about mailing ballots. We've been mailing in ballots for the longest. Military people from across seas on military installations in other countries get ballots that they call in and vote. But what they're seeing is this, again, making it political. if you will. And we just need to remove the politics. And I understand Democrat, Republican, green, blue, whatever it might be, but we're talking about human beings. We're talking about
exactly
people that, that is a part of this country, and we need to do better by that. We need to do better by that. So when I saw that $25 million out of nowhere, MUSC just get it, just like that. But when it comes to people of color or the least of these, there's always the issues of trying to make sure we receive
right.
the status. That's quite telling, and that's why it's so important. And that's why it's so important, Trey, that we take advantage of this voting, this absentee voting.
That's right.
If we want to change the process, and I've mentioned this time and time again, if we want to change the process, then we must change those who manage the process. And that is elected officials.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Elected officials are the one who make the decisions for you and for me. So if you want to change the process, then change those who manage the process. That's the only way it's going to happen, basically.
Yeah.
So, crucially important, we open it up to allow anybody. Before they had certain restrictions, you have to be over 65, you have to have some type of ailment, you have to work, you have to not be able to get, to the polling place. But now it says, regardless of who you are, you can ask for an absentee ballot, or you can go down to the voter registration office and vote absentee as well. So the opportunities open up for us, and it is a grand time for us to make a difference and to make a change in the way people handle us.
You're absolutely right. And if nothing has happened before, the pandemic should make people want to make sure the right people are in positions to make the right decisions for their best interests.
Absolutely right. There's nothing, and this pandemic has put everything front and center, and it really has put how this country has been handling us. We all knew it, but now it's out there for everybody to see, how they handle particularly the most vulnerable people of this state, and that is Hispanics, African Americans, old people. They don't handle us well because we are the most vulnerable.
That's right.
You see what I'm saying? We're the most vulnerable. So we need to make sure that we get out and vote. That changes the process. That changes the process.
Yeah, it does.
And I often told folks, it's interesting that a lot of other folks are more concerned about our voting than we are. That's why they are trying to stop us from voting. Now the voting process is open up like it's never been before. And so it is our responsibility now to be good stewards of that freedom. Be good stewards.
Yes.
Go out and exercise and vote, and take other folks with you. You don't have to call in.
Right.
Take yourself right down to the to the voter registration office and vote. You home, you ain't doing nothing. Well, some of us aren't and doing anything. So you ought to go on down there and vote. Just go down there and Carlos and vote, and you will see a difference. You will see a difference in how they handle us and how they handle the vulnerable here in our state, basically.
Exactly, because that's where our voice is. Our voice is in the vote.
Right.
Our voice is in the vote.
That's a good point. That's a good way of saying our voice is in the vote. And if they know that we're not voting, that's why they do whatever they want to do to us.
That's right. Well, they can, because again, they put who they want in positions to make decisions for us. And all we do is, we complain about it and we're angry about it. And, but what are we doing? Yeah. What are we doing? And every vote does count. You hear that, my vote doesn't count. Your vote absolutely does count. And you made such a great point. That's why people are so concerned about our vote, because they do know that it has power.
Right. It is power. It is power.
I mean, look at what happened with President Obama 2 times. Right. That was us
voting. In the process. So we have to be better stewards of our freedom, because if we are not good stewards of our freedom, Trey, they will take it from us.
You're right.
They'll take it from us, because if you don't have the right to vote, that means taxation without representation.
Without representation. That's right.
You're being taxed, but you're not being represented. And that's what they want. And that's what they're trying to lean back towards. So, we're in a good place for this June primary. And we are prayerful. We are prayerful that comes November, that absentee voting will still be in place as well. Now, we've already heard that President Trump says he don't want no absentee voting. He don't want mail-in votings, because he said that if they do mail-in voting, the Republicans will not win. I mean, that came out of his mouth. If we do mail-in voting, Republicans will not win another election. So what does that say? What does that say? That says that we have power that we are not using.
That's right. That's right. That's
know.
right. Yeah. So, so vote, like you said, you don't have to wait. You can mail in your vote, your ballot, or as soon as they open it up. And we're going to talk to the folks from the Richland County Democratic Party on Wednesday to find out. And it may be different in Florence, but I think it is statewide that the voter registrar or the Department of Voting opens up the same time for everyone to vote in advance, early voting.
And what we're trying to do, what we did here in Florence the last election, and we had absentee voting. That was before the mail-ins. We had absentee voting throughout the county, not just in one place. Because I'm in Florence, and Johnsonville is in Florence County. That's about 30 miles.
Yeah.
So what we did was we took a voting. We took the voter registration office and had them to put a voting, an absentee ballot voting or early voting in Johnsonville. So those people in Johnsonville, we had one in Lake City. So those people in Johnsonville and Lake City, they didn't have to drive 20 and 30 miles to vote.
Right, because they wasn't gonna do that.
No.
Anyway.
No. So that's what we're working on, and that's what we're going to be pushing. Not necessarily for the primary, but for the
November. Yeah, that's good, because you got to make it convenient. You can say it's unfortunate or not unfortunate, but you got to make it convenient for folks.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Yeah, so, you got to make it convenient.
So we're excited about what happened this past week. Like I said,
that's good.
$15 million that was set aside for the safety. I don't think that's enough, and I told some of my colleagues that $15 million was allowed before the governor decided to open up the state. Now that the state is quote unquote soft opening and opening up, and we're doing more testing, that means that more people will be identified as having the virus. That means that we might need more resources. So, as we do more testing, we're going to need more resources in our communities. We're going to need more resources to make sure our communities are safe, they are clean. We want to make sure that people, when they go into a facility, a public facility, that is clean, that is sanitized. We want all the things that will make for a healthy community. And
Absolutely.
That's what we're hoping MUSC will do, along with DHEC and the governor's office.
Right. Wanda Montgomery D says, country has tuned in. Do you know?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means.
her son and my son grew up together. They both went to FAMU together.
Okay. Hey, Wanda, thank you for...
And I call her country.
Oh, okay. I said it had to be something personal. Yeah.
Good people.
And Maxine says you two are more informative. Yeah. Well, the thing about being more informative, that's not always the thing that people want to hear. If it's a concert and the news, the news is going to lose out every time. But again,
they can jump and shout is cool. But I think, we're good people. The African Americans are good people.
Oh, man, what? I've been black all my life. What about you?
Huh?
I've been black all my life. What about you?
Not a day has gone by.
Don't let the pigment fool you.
Yeah. Not a day has gone by. But we just have to be more. We have to be more conscious of the process. And you said it earlier. Every vote counts.
Everyone.
You know, you voted for House members, you voted for city council members, you voted for mayors in June. It makes a difference.
It makes a difference
in those positions and make decisions that affect our communities. And if they don't look like us or feel like us, then we're going to get the shaft. That's why our educational system is the way that it is. We have not had good folk representing us. You know, and that's another thing. This educational thing come September, it's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
We don't have a clue. I was appointed to the governor's, the speaker appointed me to the House COVID-19 committee. We're going to look at this whole thing, look at what happened these past couple of months, and how do we manage this thing going forward? Because they're saying now, you know, if they're going to do the safe distancing thing, one time they used to have about 60 kids on a bus. Can't do that no more.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're having 20 and 30 kids in a classroom. You can't do that unless it's in our communities. Mm-hmm. We have to be very, very mindful. 30,000 kids were unaccounted for during this past 2 to 3 months. 30,000 at a minimum of 30,000.
Right.
Kids. And you can imagine who those kids were for the most part.
Rural communities, disenfranchised communities.
30,000 kids. And I had a conversation with the superintendent. I said, now, superintendent, you cannot punish those kids.
Right.
Because they didn't have broadband. Or because their parents are not understand this whole internet thing. They may have a smartphone, you know, but they may not know how to call in and get information from the school district.
But not only that, Terry, there is no internet access in a lot of these rural communities.
Right.
That's the other thing. I was talking to Rosalind Artis, president of Benedict College. She's on the governor's SC Accelerate Task Force.
I saw that interview. Y'all talked about your hairdos. Go ahead.
That is not only what we talked about. That was a millisecond of the conversation.
Sisters.
But Terry, she brought up the fact that one of the big problems with our state is that everyone in the state does not have access to the internet, the broadband. Right. You know, and so if you are she was talking about her college students, but if you are an elementary or high school student, junior high school student, and now they've been out for 6 to 8 weeks, how are they? And you said you talked to, Superintendent Spearman about it. They can't possibly be penalized because they don't have access to the materials to even learn. How can we be in 2020 and the state not have internet access throughout the state? Yeah,
absolutely right. And so we are working on that. We are in conversation. I'm saying we, the state and others, are in conversations with some of the local co-ops. Right now, if you live 10 miles down a road, you got electricity. Down a country road, you got electricity because the co-op ran the power down there. But you may have electricity, but you may not have broadband. So we're trying to connect. We're trying to connect with these local electrical co-ops so that they can help provide services to our community. But Trey, this is not new.
Right. Oh yeah, you're right.
They knew this. Congressman Clyburn has been pushing for this for years. So, it's not new that what they're telling us about a lot of the kids don't have, but they knew that. And they did nothing about it. We tried. They knew that a large portions of our rural communities do not have access to broadband. Not only our rural communities, but there are some communities right now in the city of Columbia, not too far from Benedict.
Yes. I was going to mention that. They said right here in downtown Columbia.
Yeah. So, and they know that. The companies know that. The spectrums know that. The cable companies know that. The utilities companies know that. So what we are experiencing is nothing new to those who are in positions that can make decisions. There's nothing. Again, that's why it's so important that we exercise our right to vote.
That's right. That's right. We need to have people in office that have our best interests at heart. Yeah. And that's why not only you need to vote, you need to research the people that are running so that you could know what their positions are. How, what their opinions are on different issues. You can't just vote for somebody that you can't vote unless you are informed about what you're voting for and who you're voting for and what those people you believe in. State Representative Terry Alexander has joined us on Coping with COVID. I'm Trey Taylor. Thank you so much for watching, whether you're watching live or in the replay. Loretta Geddes McCoy asked, were you surprised at how few people were tested at Iola Jones Park? Ms. McCoy, Terry mentioned that a few moments ago. You want to talk about that a little bit, Terry?
When I got that word that, so few people were tested, I'm like, what? Iola Jones Park sits 3 blocks from where I grew up. Mm-hmm. 3 blocks from where I grew up. And you can go out on any given day and you can go out to Iola Jones Park and you can see the boys and the girls sitting under the trees. You understand what I'm saying? But they are afraid because they're not getting good information. And information coming from the feds and from the state, it changes from day to day to day.
Oh, it does.
It started out as old people. Now they're saying kids got it. They say one time it was a lungs problem. Now it's that every part of your body can be affected.
Yes.
So, so folks are saying like, well, what is this? I ain't messing with them. You understand what I'm saying? So, it puts us in a bad position. But we do know, my sisters and my brothers who are listening, we do know that it has a major impact on our lives.
Yes.
We know that.
Yes.
And the only way we can help manage that is to get tested, get service, and try to move on in with your life as best as possible. We know that it affects us more than it affects other people. We know that.
Yeah.
And so we have to take safe measures to do that. Yeah, I was alarmingly surprised when I heard that about Iola Jones Park. Alarmingly surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, and you mentioned it, Miss Geddes McCoy. Please watch the replay, and you'll see what Terry says about it, and what he is working on doing about it with the governor of South Carolina. Terry, anything else you want to add as we wrap up today's Coping with COVID?
No,
Thank you so much.
I beg and I pray that we take advantage of this opportunity to vote early.
Yeah. Yes.
If you don't want to call in and have them send a ballot to you, then you can go down there and say, look, I want to vote early. They cannot stop you. Before, there were certain requirements. Now they are not. Please, my sisters and my brothers, please take advantage of this. Go to the polls and vote. That is where our voice, that's where our voice is heard, at the polls. Yes. Yeah,
absolutely. Terry, if people want more information about you or to contact you, how can they do that? Please, sir.
scunited20 at gmail.com. scunited20 at gmail.com, or my cell phone number 843-229-7413. My staff in Columbia said I'm crazy to give up my cell phone, but I work. That's what I work for, my cell phone. So I'm not afraid to be available to those individuals whom I serve. That's what I'm there for. 843-229-7413. Email address scunited20 at gmail.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on what's the other one is called? What's it called?
Instagram,
Snapchat,
Twitter.
You can find me on Snapchat. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. And I'm just plugging.
All right.
I'm just plugging Prayer Time with Terry every morning at 7:00 live on Facebook. I'm doing a prayer call. I've been doing this prayer ministry for about 8 years now. And a couple of weeks ago, I went live every morning at 7. It's not long, and you don't have to spend a lot of time talking to the Lord. You just go in, I do my thing, let others do their things, and we're gone. So I want you all to chime in on Facebook, 7 o'clock in the morning, every morning, or either call in on my Facebook page as well. It's called Prayer Time.
All right, and it's on your personal page.
Yeah, Prayer Time with Terry.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. So please get in touch with Terry Alexander. And if you happen to miss the prayer time with Terry, Terry is going to close us out with a prayer right now. We usually close with an excerpt from Jesus Calling, but he is not only State Representative Terry Alexander, he is Reverend Terry Alexander. So we'll ask you please to close us again with a word of prayer today.
Let us pray. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, Thou who hast brought us this far along the way, Thou who hast by thy might led us into thy light, keep us forever in thy path, we pray. We are so grateful and thankful for this moment, for this presence and time that you have allowed us. We thank you for this opportunity. We pray now for our sister and our friend that you might use her for kingdom building purposes here on earth as it is in heaven. Bless now those here in this country, in this state, in our communities. Remind them of your penned and recorded word. Lo, I am with you always. Even until the end of the time. Remind us that you are with us. In the intercessory name of your Son, Jesus the Christ, we pray. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Terry, so much for that beautiful prayer. Thank you for joining us on Coping with COVID. Thank you for your service, not only for the PD, but in our state house. And, just for being a strong, valiant community leader. We appreciate you.
Thank you. And
hey, please.
And we'll keep your best on this relationships with DHEC and MUSC and the African American Church.
Absolutely. We definitely want to hear back from you as far as that's concerned. And you can find out more by liking my Facebook and Instagram pages. Please like and follow me, Trey Tailor and Tailor Made Productions, so that you can be updated. Hey, don't forget, next week, we've got some great shows coming up on Tuesday. If you want to know where your stimulus check is, Kadena Javis with Javis Tax Services is going to tell you all about that. Terry, I want to talk to somebody about if folks are going to get more stimulus check, but we'll talk about that later, about that.
The House passed a bill this past week. Now it's going over to the Senate to see if they're passed to see if we can get some additional monies here.
Okay. So all right. So we need to get you back on to see, because how long should that be? When will the House pass it?
The House passed it this past week. And it's going over to the Senate.
Yeah.
I don't think the Senate's going to pass it. They don't see a need for it. Yeah, they don't see a need for it. Yeah.
All right. Also coming up on Wednesday, Terry talked a lot about the absentee voting. Well, we're going to talk with the folks from the Richland County Democratic Party that are going to tell us everything we need to know about voting, absentee, and other voting issues. Coming up on Friday, it's a really big show, Terry. We're going to talk to 5 church leaders about how church may change post-COVID. From Charlotte, North Carolina, we've got Pastor John P. Key from New Life Community Fellowship. From Columbia, South Carolina, Pastor Travis Green with Forward City Church. In Queens, New York, Reverend Dr. Charmaine Lashley with Grace United Methodist Church. In Albany, New York, we've got Reverend Damon Paul Johnson with Metropolitan NTM Baptist Church in Albany, and Chris Levy Johnson with Brooklyn Baptist Church Northeast in Columbia. We're going to find out what happened to the church. Does it change post-COVID? That's Friday at 2:00. Please join us every day at 2 right here for Coping with COVID. Please continue to post and share out all of this good information so we can get this information to the masses. And please take care, be careful, stay safe, and have a great afternoon. Thank you, Terry.
Bless you. Thank you. Be safe.